they ask you to save them. They ask you to, you know, oh, well, I'll just stand behind you, you know, because of this, and this, and you know, you can take care of it. And in a way, you think that you're being the hero. It plays to your ego, 100%, because we all want to help, right? We all want to, like, be that person to that friend or that, you know, sibling or whoever it is, relationship, it doesn't matter, to kind of like save the day for them, you know. They also might kind of hide behind you, let you deal with a situation. It's another example.
The silent, what is it, the silent supporter?
Silent supporter, silent observer.
Just stand over here.
Just, yeah. Oh, I needed to see something, so I just let you take that one. Okay. You know, yes, you're, like I said, first instinct is, okay, I'm there for you. I am here for you, whatever you need. Bringing back the perspective is that you now may think that you're the hero to that person that asked you to step in front of them, but now you're automatically the villain to the person that you're stepping in between. In their perspective, they make you the villain, and you take the brunt of their villainization.
You become the victim.
And you then become the victim, and then that triangle ensues. So it's almost kind of like, oh, yay, I want to be the hero. And little did you know that you just opened up a hole, or they unconsciously set a trap for you to just fall face forward into. And congratulations, now you are in a soap opera with this with asshole cake all over you.
Right?
Do we want to bring an asshole cake? Okay. So this is the game that I played with this, is when people throw stuff at you, it's like they're making this pretty little cake, and then they want to throw it at you, and they want you to eat it. And so it's literally like trying, and we eat it ourselves. We do it to ourselves. Again, what we do to other people is what we do to ourselves. So everybody makes this pretty little cake, and you're being an asshole. Sorry.
How many people did you victimize in that moment?
Okay. Might I mention, it is quite easy to fall right out of the center and right back into the triangle.
Yes.
Okay, this isn't an easy game that we're making right now.
Probably the hardest thing you'll ever do.
Exactly. And it can be in a split moment. Just even with that sentence. I just said one thing in describing what we're doing, and yeah. But I also then victimized myself, because I not only said, okay, you're being an asshole, but the next sentence was, I'm being an asshole to myself. I'm making asshole cake, and I'm feeding it to other people, and I'm feeding it to myself.
Yeah.
Other people make asshole cake, and they want other people to eat it, and they eat it themselves, and they don't even know.
Yeah.
So
It's just a big mess to clean up.
it's just one big food fight, cake fight, which can be fun.
Could be fun.
But then it looks like chaos.
Yes, truly. To anybody else's perspective.
To anybody else's perspective.
That's not involved in the game.
Exactly. To the observer.
Yes.
Like, wow, that's a nice chocolate everywhere.
And just to continue on, so you continue to get more examples, which is what we like to do, is give you as many examples. So now the observer has the option, the opportunity to go, wow. They can either go one way, they can replete, oh no, I've got to clean that up. You know, or, they're so involved in their things, they're not going to take care of their own business, take care of their own mess. So I'm going to come in and rescue them and save the day by cleaning up the mess. You know, now there's a, again, this is a false hero in the essence of they're doing it under duress, against their will almost. Because they have this perspective that tells them expectation. They're expecting nobody to do the work themselves. They're expecting everybody to leave the scene. They're expecting to have to do it for them.
Which is victimizing other people.
Yes.
You're automatically, by showing up and being that hero, real hero, false hero, whatever, you're victimizing people.
While at the same time being villainized by them in your own mind.
This gets fun.
Yes.
It gets sticky, but it
Very
gets fun.
sticky.
Very sticky.
Yes.
Start paying attention to how the world villainizes and victimizes and creates a hero. I'm not going to put any examples on that.
Sure.
But
we will go into
Yeah.
what a real hero is.
Yeah.
You know, a real hero is the one that shows up with absolute integrity. No hidden agendas.
Yep.
Just there to be of service, whatever that looks like. You know, and the real hero, rather they are real or imagined, because we can imagine and create, imaginary friends, imaginary knights in shining armor, inside or out.
Ego, real heroes.
Ego, real heroes.
Imaginary.
And no matter the form, this compassionate being never attaches, but moves into action.
Never emotionally attaches. Is that what
Never
you mean?
emotionally
Yeah.
attaches, physically attaches, and they're, like I said, they normally leave without even a thank you.
Right.
So they're not attached to
Yep.
what it is they're doing, they're not attached to what it is they've done.
Yeah.
So they see through the snares of the victim's false heroes, and they see at the villains. This is the Good Samaritan that puts out a hand or a rope out or down into a hole, cave, fortress, tower, prison, that lets us know that we're not alone. That lets us know that we never were. You know, again, just like the villain, the hero always shows up at the right time. We can always look life in the face and see the opportunity to be a real hero.
The real hero could almost be if you choose to stand in the center and be the observer, seeing all angles, just like you said, like you see through, the villain's eyes and who's who, and then show up as a real hero, knowing all the different players of the game. So that's kind of what takes your emotional attachment and physical attachment out of it, because you're just like, okay, I see all the players, I see how everything's happening, I see the whole soap opera, I've watched the first episode to all the way 13 episodes, and I've saw everything, and now I just want to come in and do this, this, and this.
Clear the space.
Clear the space authentically and unconditionally.
Yeah, we don't fight or flight. We don't run and hide. We don't deny. We can realize what is and take that
love realizing
hand.
what is.
I do too. It's so beautiful.
Just like, oh, okay.
It just is. Wow. And not only is it just ising, but it's also done. It's complete. Whatever it is doing, it has done. And so there's always that aspect as well to realize, is that whatever has happened is done. It's done happening. You know, yes, there are residual effects to some things, but the point of impact is over. And you're dealing with the residual. So we can realize what is and take the hand, the rope, or we can climb, walk, run, skip, giggle, out into the forgotten world. A world that is shaped by our perspective. It shows up in a conscious communication and communion intimately with everything else, everyone else, including the real heroes that then become best friends. The real hero walks us out into the world and shows us where we have been. And again, when he is done sharing, he, she, we have had, and we've had enough observation, the hero leads us gently to the center of our existence and asks us to take one look around before asking if we are ready to have a happy ending and a fresh beginning. And that's the real hero's job, is to provide you ease and grace, to provide you that extra step.
Tools for doing it yourself.
Yes.
Because ultimately then you can start becoming your own real hero. And you won't, not that it's a need, but you won't need that coming from anyone else. You can accept it openly, but knowing that you can also be participating in being your own real hero at the same time.
Absolutely.
Intentional versus unintentional is a big one. It pertains to perspective. Okay.
Perpetual perspective.
Perpetual. Almost definitely does also create a villain victim role playing scenario. Only this time it's almost like it's each person fighting for who's going to be the victim, and making the other person the villain so that they can be the victim, and then that person's making them the villain so that they can be the victim, and it fights back and forth. It's where one person creates an opportunity to play the victim, okay? Whatever that is, whatever that looks like. We all know opportunities that we've created to play the victim. When you start getting really truthful with yourself, you can start calling yourself out. Okay, gently, with ease and grace. Okay, this is where I created this scenario to make myself the victim.
This is how I showed up.
This is how I showed up, exactly. Whether it's realistic or not, it doesn't matter. It's where you're operating from. It addresses, so it works like this. So it's where person one creates the opportunity to play the victim, okay? And they think, or addresses what they think person two did. So it's like, well, I won't even get into a scenario with that. When it's not known to person two, they're immediately then villainized. So,
Victimized. When it's not known to person. Okay, got it.
Person one is villainizing person two.
Got it.
Because villain one, villain one and villain two. Person one created a scenario to play the victim to then make person two a villain. Person two had no idea that that's what person one was doing, thus making person two the victim in their perspective. Again, the automatic reaction then brings out the fight or flight, okay? Because then it's like, okay, then you're in defend mode. And then when you're in defend mode, you automatically then have to be the victim. So that's where then the fight comes in, because you're in or person two is in defend mode and playing the victim, and yet the other person created a scenario to be the victim, and then they want to fight for victim, where you're trying to fight for victim because that's where it gets really sticky. You're just like, wow, okay, and this is the triangle, and it's chaotic, and it's so draining and so unnecessary and not fulfilling at all.
No. It's like your life force is running out.
Yeah. So then, it switches around where then that person starts villainizing themselves in order to victimize the other person, and which in turn allows them an opportunity to fight for the victim role.
Right.
Either way, both are not consciously observing their own reactionary behavior.
Right.
They're not. They are reactionary.
Right. So it's unintentional.
So it is unintentional. Then all of it is unintentional. Potentially.
And there are intentionals.
There are intentionals.
Yes.
Those are villain, at least how it could be played out is, let's say, for instance, if it's an intentional, then that person might have victim personality with an ego villain.
Right.
So they have to constantly create scenarios of villains around them in order to play the victim all the time.
So let's take that a little bit deeper. So
Okay.
just so that there's for perfect clarity is that, this is what we're speaking of here is, intentionally imagining in your mind, plotting, okay, if I was to just be a victim, if I was to enter into, oh, it's me, oh, my leg hurts, or whatever it is, then that would potentially bring out the bad side of the person in the group that doesn't like victims, or who is always, so let's say that, for this conversation's sake, let's say that, this is a child who is being abused in secret, and so the non-abuser doesn't believe them, and so the child invents a scenario playing the victim to be able to bring out the true side of their villain.
And that can happen. Saying it as children makes a lot of sense because you learn, going back to learning that behavior, old programs, you learn that behavior from your parents. Maybe you wanted your parents' attention. And that was the only way that you could get it. So now you have that. That's where, so, okay, if that was a trauma, let's say that happened, because it always starts with a trauma, where that conversation entered into a child and they said, I'm not getting any love from mommy and daddy. How do I get love from mommy and daddy? So they create themselves, that makes them the victim. And then
As well as their own false hero.
Making mommy and daddy the villain. But then once they played the victim and played out that whole, like, creating a scenario, maybe a temper tantrum, let's say. That's what a lot of kids do.
Right.
And then it's up to mommy and daddy to come and cater to that.
To rescue. Now there is, of course, this mommy and daddy could be integral and they could be really helping that child through. It's always perspective.
And sometimes, though, let's just play out the dysfunctionality of some families. Some children want attention because their mother and father was verbally abusive.
Truly.
And so then it's a constant thing of being victimized, but then wanting to make them proud.
Yes.
Or, did I do enough? Did I... Self-worth. Victimhood, big time. But then that trauma, when that child has that scenario, that automatically creates the pattern of how they will show up with the world. So they got the attention from mommy and daddy by either them coming to save the day or by them verbally abusing them or physically, whatever it is, right? Touching on touchy subjects, but it's real. And so now they need to create scenarios from other people to show up as villains so that then they can get that attention, get that, but I'm the victim. But it's all they're really saying is, I want love. I didn't get enough when I was younger or whatever.
Right.
And then that's what we mean by that sets that program of how what you agree to in relationship to the world and how you create it to show up as your soap opera.
And your identity.
And it's completely, it's not conscious behavior.
Right.
And it's what in some of my studying and knowledge that I've gained from different courses, whatever, there's the what you don't know, you don't know. And so a lot of this is what you don't know. So don't victimize yourself for not knowing. But in taking this on and taking this understanding on, you have the responsibility then to know and be conscious and have conscious interactions and especially with yourself. Like if it does start with ourselves. So if you have to set those boundaries where, you do a lot of inner reflection to understand all of this that you've been creating in order to then have other people also do the same. You
Yes.
know, when I get a download, when you get the download, then other people start getting the same download.